If you walk through Riyadh or Kuala Lumpur today, you will see glittering megacities and massive universities. But there is a paradox hiding behind this concrete wealth. Despite the billions poured into infrastructure, the modern Muslim world produces almost no globally recognized scientific innovations, groundbreaking research papers, or Nobel laureates. When asked why this is, society usually defaults to a familiar script. People blame Western imperialism or point to corrupt local politicians holding them back. This state of collective amnesia makes it difficult to even identify what was lost, or that anything was lost at all. To see how this happened, we have to look at a very specific window, the 3 decades between 1918 and 1947. This period covers the dismantling of a centuries-old intellectual supply chain. The network of scholars, deep-pocketed patrons, and cross-border universities that actually produced knowledge began to fracture into isolated segments. As mechanisms for protecting knowledge disappeared, the focus of the civilization shifted away from innovation toward the urgent, daily need for physical survival. To understand today's intellectual poverty, we need to conduct a ruthless, objective autopsy of the 3 specific disasters that occurred during this 30-year collapse. The late Ottoman Empire was actively modernizing. Under leaders like Sultan Abdul Hamid II, the state funded a massive telegraph network and made a genuine attempt to fuse Islamic philosophy with rapid industrial progress. Then came the territorial collapse. This map highlights the massive chunks of land in the Balkans lost by 1920. This triggered a catastrophic refugee crisis, subjecting millions of Muslims to systematic ethnic cleansing. By 1923, 1 in 3 people in the new Turkish Republic was a displaced refugee. These individuals were the very artisans, wealthy patrons, and scholars who sustained the empire. When they were forced onto ox carts and ships, the businesses that funded the universities collapsed. The printing presses stopped. To guarantee the survival of a new state, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk intentionally severed the republic's ties to its Ottoman past. By 1928, the Arabic script was entirely replaced by the Latin alphabet, instantly cutting an entire generation off from centuries of their own literature and legal texts. The fall of the Ottoman center wiped out the primary patronage network that had funded and protected Islamic scholarship across the globe. Further north, within the Russian Empire, another intellectual renaissance had taken shape. The Jadid movement spread rapidly through Central Asia, led by reformist thinkers who were successfully harmonizing traditional Islamic theology with modern science. Then came the Bolshevik Revolution. The Soviet regime demanded a completely atheist citizenry. They actively hunted down the Jadid intellectual class. Scholars were executed or imprisoned, and centuries-old mosques were literally gutted and turned into state warehouses. Grave. This chart shows the scale of the state-sponsored terror. Out of the estimated 60 to 90 million total victims of the regime, a massive 20 to 30 million were Muslims. By the 1950s, a new generation had been raised with no access to their own intellectual history. The Soviet state had successfully severed the northern frontier from the broader Islamic world. Even as the center and the north collapsed, the Indian subcontinent remained a global beacon of Islamic scholarship. It held a deeply entrenched intellectual elite, tied by trade and academic networks straight to Cairo and Istanbul. In 1947, the partition of India violently ripped that entire ecosystem apart. It triggered the largest forced migration in human history. Over 15 million people were displaced, fleeing across newly drawn borders in packed, chaotic train cars just to survive. What emerged was a refugee state. When a new nation is built by traumatized survivors living in makeshift tents, all of its energy is consumed by the desperate need to feed people, establish basic administration, and prepare for border conflicts. People running for their lives cannot build modern universities. They do not have the capital to fund long-term scientific research. The partition killed the Indo-Islamic intellectual golden age, trapping its survivors in a permanent state of crisis management. Center, north, and east, these were concurrent, fatal blows that completely shattered the global supply chain of Islamic knowledge. For decades, society has shielded itself from the implications of this total structural collapse by framing it as a Western conspiracy or a divine test of faith. Acknowledging the depth of this historical defeat is the only way to recover our agency, the first step toward regaining control of our destiny. There are no shortcuts here. No divine interventions are going to suddenly restore a lost golden age. The path forward begins with facing the timeline of destruction and designing new institutions from scratch. The physical structures of a city are secondary to the agency of the people within them. As the philosopher Allama Iqbal put it, civilization is the manifestation of a powerful personality.